Today is Wednesday, August 20th, 2014, and Joe and Jenny Turner are here with me, Judy Meyer, and we are talking to Margret Kirsch. Did I pronounce your name right?
Margret Kirsch.
And we are at the Bridgeton Library today, and I really haven't met you before, Margret, so you're going to have to fill me in and tell me about yourself. Where were you born?
I was born in Strasbourg, France.
In France?
Yeah, in France. My dad was a Frenchman.
Oh.
Mother was German.
Oh, uh-huh.
And that's where I was born, December 29th, 1925.
1925.
It's a long time ago.
Right. So you are
88.
88.
We'll be 89 in December.
When, how long did you live in France?
We came over here, I think, my dad, my mother, I think it was in the 33 that he had to, we became German citizens, my dad and I, we both were French citizens. And my dad and I was 10 years old, I think, we became German citizens in 35.
And he did that because he wanted to?
No, he had to.
He had to
At that particular time of Hitler, that was more or less a must, yes.
What was it like in France? Do you remember then?
No, I do know I had a little prayer that I would always say with my mother, which was in French. I wouldn't remember it at all anymore. I still had it over my bed, but I couldn't remember what it was anymore, no.
And your mother was?
German.
German, okay.
From Saarbrücken. That's on the borders, that's close to France. That's how they met. Yeah.
What kind of work did your father do?
He was a carpenter, finished carpenter, but he didn't found a job as a carpenter, so he went to I don't know what you call it here, a manufacturer, anything, you know, in carpentry.
Did you have any brothers or sisters?
I had one sister. And
she older or younger?
She's much younger. She's about 9.5 years younger than me. She is now here too. She lives in Minnesota.
Oh.
Yeah. I just talked to her yesterday. We talk often.
Nice.
Sometimes we talk in German, sometimes, most of the time we talk English to each other. It's funny. We forgot so much of the German language.
Well, tell me, so as you were then 10, as you said, and your father and you became German citizens.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
Well, the war in 1939 started for Germany because that's when with the German and Hitler. Hitler was in power in 1933. And I remember that time, that was hectic. We all had to vote for Hitler. You know, there was nobody else on the market. It was just Hitler.
Even living in France, it was like?
We weren't living in France then. We were here in 1933, more or less. We were before. And the voting had started there in 1933 for Hitler. And in 1935, we were German citizens. Dad had to be, and he to help, because his name is a French name. And he joined the SR and wore the brown uniform. But it made him feel better for his family, because his brother was left in Strasbourg. That was French at the time. But the Germans had already control over that. He had to change his name, his brother. He could not keep the French name. From Dubourdieu, he had to change to Dubourg.
Oh.
And that's what he did. And so he was safe. And that's the feeling mostly. That's what I got out of it even as a child.
To be safe, that's what he had to do.
But then we got bombed out in, I think in 1940, 42. I don't remember the names. the years.
Okay.
But I know I was still very young. I had to be 14 because it was in the last year of my school year. And then the bombing raids had started.
The bombing
Yeah. The
in
cities,
France?
No, in Germany.
In Germany.
We've been in Germany since 33.
I see.
And this was in the 40s now, what I'm talking about.
Well, let me ask you, just to go back just a little bit, when you said you were in school, what was school like for you there in Germany then?
It was, I have never been in a school here, so I have no comparison.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like every child. We didn't like school, of course.
Okay.
Who likes school?
Well, I can understand
We did not have school buses, and the schools were very close. And we walked every morning to school, and we had our own luncheon. School, yeah, that was under Hitler's time too, and what I remember, because you start when you're 6 years old, you start school.
that. Were the teachers women or men or both?
They were mixed. We had some men and some women. Mine happened to be, we kept our teacher all through our school year when you were 6-year-old till you were 14.
And you stayed with the same one?
Yeah, you
I
stayed
see.
with the same one.
I see.
And my teacher happened to be a party member of the SR. And she wore the bronze shield or the gold shield of the SR. And of course we knew everything about Hitler, even if we didn't want to know it. And whatever we were taught about Hitler came from our teacher.
So it was pretty biased.
Very much so. Looking back on it, you know, when I compare it to what the school is here, that I think would have never been allowed anywhere else but there. It was a dictatorship.
Yes.
Hitler
yes.
was.
Yeah.
So he was it.
Did
And
your,
we had to all adore him.
Did your mother and father tell you in the privacy of your own place anything contrary to what they were saying at school? Did they dare?
Not contrary. That it wasn't very safe.
I see, even in your own home.
But my mother would never allow me not to obey the orders that we had standing. As a young person, you always be respectful of your elders. That meant when you're in a streetcar, we had streetcars on transportation. When you're going into the streetcar and you have a seat, and there is somebody else that is older than you, you give them your seat. That was my home teaching.
Yes.
But that's not what our teacher told us.
Really? Why?
No, they were not German. If they didn't have the Jewish armband on, okay? That's what we were told by our teacher. You can't stand up. You have to ignore them. You don't do anything good for a Jewish person. Well, when you were that young, it didn't make any difference to you. What is a Jewish person?
Yeah.
And why is this?
Yes.
We had a couple living in our home.
Oh.
And it was a father and son that were Jewish. I didn't know that. I played with the guy, you know, he was my age.
Right.
And so I didn't understand the Jewish bit.
Uh-huh.
It took me a long time to understand that. But what brought it home a little bit, my mother and I were shopping and came home. And from the street, from our street, 2 policemen came down with the boy's father between them. And my mother stopped them. And she was arguing with the policeman, and why do you take him, and what are you going to do? And they told my mother to just either go away or you are going with us. Now, she went away because It took me a long time till after the war to figure out what it was.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the first time, it took me that long to ask my mother. First time I was here in the States already.
Mm-hmm.
I was married and my own child. And I went home and I asked my mother about that. I said, Mom, what was that all about? And she said, I forgot who was with me. She said, I thought it was Liselotte. But no, I said, that was me. So what was that? He said, that was that boy that was there. You played with it. He was Jewish and his father was Jewish. And they took his father to the concentration camp. But let me tell you the rest of it, she said. The young man survived the concentration camp.
The father?
The young man, the son.
The son.
He survived the concentration camp. His father died.
Mm-hmm.
But the young man looked up my mother.
Oh.
And he couldn't mess with a French name. We were the only ones in Düsseldorf with that particular name.
Uh-huh.
And used my mother as a witness to what he had in his home as personal, so that he would get reimbursed for everything.
Wow.
My mother was very happy to do that. That was that story way back then,
Mm-hmm.
that when I was here, that's how I found out what happened to that young man, and I was pleased that my mother was very happy that she could help him. But that's when I realized how bad it was with the Jewish.
Yes.
I saw the picture,
Yes.
you know, of the concentration camp,
Yeah. Right, yes.
and that was hard.
Yeah, and neighbors.
Very difficult
yes.
to understand. I couldn't accept that my country could do that. It's horrible. We came out of this war, we were all hungry, we didn't have much to eat. We couldn't buy any clothing, there wasn't anything. Not even decent soap. There was all wasn't. I still smell that soap, that little square things that looked like sand.
Uh-huh.
And then we have to see what we as Germans did. And really, most of the nations, it was all so secret.
Yeah.
Some people knew,
Yeah.
but most of us, and you couldn't do anything about it anyhow. You would have been shot.
Right, yes.
That
yes.
was always behind it.
Yes, yes.
And you only reach that understanding when you're an adult. As a young person, there's no way you can get that together. See, I saw the things. I went past the house, I came home from school, and I saw this house, and people on the ground, and everything was flying out of the windows. Books, and furniture, and all. And they burned something that was burning, that's what I remember. But I didn't know what.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I had to ask Mom. And she said that was a Jewish person, what they did that to. But there was nothing you could do about it. When you have a dictatorship, it's very, very strange to accept that.
Right.
That the people don't uprise against it. You can't. Everybody was there to watch you. That's the feeling you get.
Right, yes. I understand what you're saying, and I hope our future generations understand that too. But I mean, we have known stories of German people that have tried to help and have tried to sneak out
Yes.
people in different ways and hidden, Jewish families, but still, if they were caught, they were also taken away.
Yes.
It's a shame, but your family was able to continue.
Yeah, when we lost our house,
And why did you lose the house?
With the bombings.
The bombings.
Yeah, we got the bombs on top of the house. All the several homes were burning, and it's horrible when you live through that. We had air raids almost every night. You know, they always came through there, bombing one thing or the other. And you get so used to it. You run down basement steps. And I fell down the basement steps. That's where my first injury was with my back.
Oh.
That's a long time back, yeah. And so you get so much used to that. But when we were on the street, most of us, and all my uncles and aunts, you know, we lived all in the same house. Grandma had already died by that time, and Grandpa had died a long time ago. But all my uncle and aunts, we were all there, and all the other people that lived there, we were all on the street, all what we could get. That wasn't very much. Few closings, maybe a glass of, no, there was no water. I was looking for water. And there was no water, and I knew we had some wine in there, and I did get the wine out.
Wow.
No water. And we had the hair full of ashes. I fell into the glass. I see this picture. My window was right over the entrance and had a flagpole on it. And I would run in there and up the first steps and see if I can get something. And like I said, I was opening the wardrobe where the china was,
yes,
and all of it came out. And I said, oh, what the heck? You know, and I couldn't save any of that. So I took the tablecloths off. Mama had the tablecloths, was hand crocheted by the nuns.
Yeah.
We did that in Germany a lot.
Right.
They did that. And I said she would like the tablecloths. We couldn't use it anymore. But it's
something you clung to that, you know, idea of the past of that.
Yeah.
When did your family come to the United States? When did you leave them?
My family didn't come, just me.
Really?
I married an American soldier.
Oh!
I never thought I would, because I was so angry because I lost everything. But the war was over.
Now, how old were you then?
I was in my 20s. When the war was over, in 45, I was 20.
Yes.
I had no teen years.
You had no what?
Teen years.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
I was working, I was in the Army as a switchboard operator. And actually, I liked my job. I love to talk. And here I was, and had that great big switchboard. And
Tell us about a switchboard, because this day and age, I don't know if anybody would know what a switchboard is.
No.
So could you tell us a description of a switchboard?
It's actually a big thing like this. It's a square, oblong, not square, oblong place, and it has little windows up with a little folding door. That was all magnetized. And any time somebody calls on that particular number, that little door would fall open. You take your switchboard thingy, I don't know what it called. You push that in, and you had the other one, you had it on your ear. And you could hear, you could ask, which number do you want? And then you connect with the other one. That's how it worked, and it was so much fun when there was... We had, of course, all the military. Well, we had also night shift. And when we were on at nights, I would use that switchboard to go anywhere I wanted. I got my friend. I was a youngster. That was my first crush. He lived across the street. He was older than I am. You know how that goes. The first crush,
Right,
14,
sure.
15.
Sure.
He was in the Army, and I knew exactly where he was. And I finally got through to him. That's what I would do with the switchboard at night, just to talk to somebody. But that wasn't bad.
How many hours a day did you work that switchboard?
Well, we worked day shift. We had 3 shifts that I don't know how many hours that were anymore. And we got, of course, we had to eat in the mess hall. And then we got rations for the commiss bread, that much. And on top of the bread, that was whole piece bread. And then we had our imitation butter and imitation honey. That was for our snacks in the morning and then snacks in between. And we lived in barracks, all the girls. We had a long barrack. We have a lady that was our supervisor. She was a German officer. And we had 4 girls, 2 double beds. We had 4 girls to a room with closets.
And was this after the war was over then?
No, that was all during the war.
Still during the war?
That's what I did, all during the war.
What happened to your mother and father then at that time?
Well, Dad was in the army, and Mother and my sister lived in a village. That's where we evacuated to.
I see.
They were really farm villages. And when I came home, when the war was over, we were still living there. We had nothing anymore on housing.
Yes.
And farm living. The geese were in the streets, there were cows and pigs. I wasn't used to any of that. And so I came up. I said, Mom, where's the bathroom? My mother got the greatest kick out of that. She told me, said, come on, I'll show you. She took me down steps and out, and there was the outhouse.
Yeah. Right.
I still smell it.
We had outhouses here and even...
And no water in the house. The water was downstairs. This was where we lived in. It was an empty schoolhouse. Now that was now after the war. That's where my mother and my little sister were evacuated
I
to.
see.
They lived there all during the war.
I see.
And I came home to that. So there was no water in there. And I had to go and get a bucket full of water or 2. Going there was downhill, coming up and uphill, of course. So that's what I did there. And then I went and found a job that was all after the war. I started a little business after the war, and I was in the black market.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes.
Oh.
You couldn't eat something, you couldn't get anything. And everybody got hungry. It wasn't there yet after the war. Well, this was a village now, and they had Sundays, they had a dance with the Umfa-Band.
Right.
Okay. So all the boys knew I could dance, and they wanted me to teach them. I said, okay, I teach you. You give me a pound of a loaf of bread, you can give me some eggs and I get some butter from you. I'll teach you if you bring that. And you know they were dumb enough to do that.
Oh, they just wanted...
They wanted to dance.
Right. They
know.
needed the... they needed...
Well, I had more dancers than I could handle, but I had food.
Well, that wasn't...
But you have to do what you have to do.
That didn't sound so bad to me.
And then I had the baker. Oh, I remember this one. The baker wanted a piece of material for a new suit. Now, he knew that I can handle that. I don't know how he knew. But he said, can you get it? I said, yeah, if you give me white meal, white flour, I can do it. And I need about 100 pounds of that.
100 pounds?
And I couldn't carry that.
Yeah, 100 pounds.
I had.
Where did you come up with that number, 100
I
pounds?
just had those numbers in my head. I wanted as much as I could get because we were hungry long enough. And we had and I was still young enough to want to enjoy life. I was just 20 years old. And I got that mail, that flour somewhere up there, and I got the material. And Mom and Dad and myself, we got enough bread to eat for, for quite a while.
Now, how did you meet the American man?
Well, that's when I was in Bad Kissingen. My mother had a business before the war, repairing stockings. You know, we get runs in there.
Yeah, I remember the seams in the stockings.
Mom could repair them. She had a little machine.
Oh.
And she has done that for years. And so she did that. And I started my own business. I rented a place in a store. And I started that. And it took off. It was okay. I had enough money of my own that I could buy myself some clothing, you know. And I had to pay rent. That was always a problem. I remember that one. But I made it. And one day I met my husband there. And
Did he come into your shop for some reason?
no, there were a lot of places where you have evenings that you can dance. The dances were on again, you know. And so all my age group, we were always there, and that's where we met. So
What was his name?
Pardon?
What's his name?
Howard.
Howard.
Yeah. And when we became serious, I wasn't going to introduce him to my parents because I didn't know how they are going to react to an American, to be their son-in-law. I really didn't know how that's going to go. And my mother fell in love. She says, he's like a son to me.
You were so surprised.
Yeah.
What was his last name?
Kirsch, K-I-R.
And where did he live? What
In
state was he
Pennsylvania.
from? He was from Pennsylvania.
This is how we came over, yeah. Our son was born in 54. Yeah, in 54. We were married a year or two before we married. I had my French passport, and I used that, and then we could marry. Didn't have too much paperwork, but still quite a bit of paperwork.
Was it?
And so my son was 6 weeks old when we came over here. And that's how we came to Pittsburgh.
I see.
That's when I met his parents.
What did his parents think of you, the German girl?
I never asked them, but
Well, surely you could kind of feel their
they were very warm and generous.
Really?
Yeah.
How nice. How
Yeah.
nice was that?
I wasn't.
Of course, you were bringing a grandson with you.
Well, that made a difference.
Yes,
too.
I think so. You know,
Yeah.
people kind of warm up to the
Yeah.
grandbaby,
Yeah.
and
Oh yeah. And that's how I started. That's how we started out here.
what did your husband do? What kind of work, or what did
Well,
he
he
do?
didn't because he was too young too. He was young enough to be in the army. You know, he was the occupation force, and he was I think 2 years younger. He was born in 26, 27. Oh, I forget, 29.
A lot of young men enlist
29.
very early.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so he had to learn to type. He took some classes, and he went in the shipping business. And that's how he started out.
Well, let me ask you something. You started off in France, so you were speaking French when you were little?
Not anymore. I don't remember
But you were at one time.
at the time, even of course my dad did. And when I was over there the last time, I asked him, he was complaining that I wouldn't understand the German or couldn't talk the German that easy. I said, Dad, how's your French? Would you say something? No. So he understood that
Uh-huh.
you don't retain.
Right, but anyway, you spoke French.
I did.
Now this young man, this American GI has become, how did you two communicate? Did he speak German?
No, yeah, he did speak German.
How did he
Not
know?
fluent.
How did he know the German?
I don't know. We managed. But I knew, because of my business, repairing the stockings. I had also American ladies, and I had taken some lessons because I wanted to talk English too. And I learned very easily, and I read a lot. So my first book that I wanted to read was Forever Amber. That was one book, I don't know why.
Forever Amber.
Yeah, and that's where the name Bruce comes from. My son, that's what I named him.
Bruce.
I read that in the last book I read, that was in Germany, Forever Amber. And the young man in there was Bruce, and I fell in love with that name, and that's my son, Bruce.
Did you have any other children?
My daughter, Deborah,
And
she was born in Indianapolis.
Oh, Indianapolis.
Yeah.
So you moved around a little bit since you came
We
to the
did.
United States.
We were Pennsylvania, we were Indianapolis, and then his job took him to Missouri.
I see.
And that's where we bought the house. Still live in the same place.
And you live in
Hazelwood.
Hazelwood.
Yeah.
Well, where are your children now?
My daughter is in LA, and my son is living with me. He had, a few years ago, he came down with brain cancer.
Oh my.
Yeah. And we didn't know what was wrong with him, and we took him there, and they had to operate the same day. It was that dangerous. He wouldn't have lived. And then after the operation, they gave him 6 months to live. And he had just married Anne.
Oh.
And that was his second marriage. So I told them they can stay in my house till they found a place to live. They're still there. That is 4 years ago.
Oh.
Yeah, they're still there. Bruce is much, much better.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
He
That's
made it.
wonderful.
Yeah.
And how old is he?
He's 60. He was 60 April 1st.
60.
That's one birthday I never forget, April 1st.
Right,
But,
yeah. Did he have any children?
Yeah, he has 2 girls.
So you have 2 grandchildren.
Oh, I have 4 grandchildren. I have more. My daughter has 2 grandchildren.
Okay.
Yeah, she has 2 children. They are Dominique and Danielle, and Bruce's is Aaron and Kristen. So I got 4 girls. Now I have 2 great-grandsons.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
My daughter's daughter, Dominique, has a boy. I was up there this year in LA, and we went to Arizona. It's the first time I really went from LA to Arizona through the whole desert.
Oh,
I have really seen the desert. And I was surprised. It isn't as dead as you imagine. It is brown, and it's a lot of green in there. And it's not as much of sand, it is just brown. And it's interesting. And of course, there were a lot of highways and up and down through the mountains. I was surprised. I enjoyed that. It was quite a trip from LA to Phoenix. And then we went whale watching.
Whale watching?
Yeah, we went.
Wow.
That was one thing my daughter said we're going to do. We're going to whale watch. And we did that.
Good for you. You didn't get a little sick on the boat?
No. I grew up on the Rhine River. So I know doesn't bother me. Water doesn't bother me. Any kind of water,
When did you lose your husband?
Oh, when was that?
May I ask?
81. In 81 I lost him. Yeah, he's emphysema.
Oh,
Yeah. There was nothing anybody could do. And at that time, they didn't have that much to deal with. He only had an inhaler.
Yeah.
And he was pretty bad.
I see.
And he couldn't quit smoking.
Yeah.
Not till the last moment he couldn't quit smoking.
I understand. It's very addicting. I understand.
And I didn't want to be married again. I just want to be me. Just me. And that's okay. I made it.
Were you working at all, after you came to Well, after you just came to the United States, did you work then?
I worked part-time jobs, and I worked after my husband died. That I had to, because I had to pay off the house yet, you know. But I worked in the hospital, in the kitchen.
Which hospital?
St. Luke's. And, you know where that is?
I believe I
Ladue Road.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. Mercy's on this side and
Yes.
St. Luke is on this side. And yeah, I worked there for 7 years.
7 years.
Got my house paid off.
Good.
And I got my car.
You're a hard-working woman.
I had no choice. And I didn't mind because I was young enough, I was with people. And that helped, you know, that it was a shock. And my son was married, my daughter wasn't quite married yet. So I didn't have to worry about my children. So that was okay. But I managed to do that. I paid that off. Oh, then I couldn't sit at home. I retired at 65, and I said, now what do I do, you know? So I went and...
Did you always drive?
No, I had to learn that when I came here. And I had to learn it when my husband died. I didn't know how to drive.
So you hadn't driven, really, up till then?
I have never driven a car before that.
Wow.
And I had that car.
That your husband always drove?
Oh, he was driving it, yeah. So I had to learn how to do that.
So who taught you to drive?
Well, my sister was here. She just came over with her. They married in my house. That was, yeah, shortly after my husband died. My sister came over with her husband. No, they married in my house,
Yes.
in the church. Then they went to Minnesota. But before she went, she was here alone for a while. And she took a driving course, and she insisted that I learn how to
I think
do
she
that.
was smart.
And that was very smart.
Right,
I didn't
right.
realize it till I had to use it. So I knew how to drive a car, but that doesn't mean I was secure on the highway.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't drive on the highway. I went all the way on Lindbergh, early morning.
Uh-huh.
I had to be there by 6 o'clock in the kitchen. And I drove Lindbergh to Ladue too.
And Lambert can be pretty tricky itself.
I managed that. I managed that. I had to do
What was best for you?
And I did. And then all of a sudden, after a month or two, I said, why am I doing this? I can drive the highway, and wouldn't you know it? It was late February that I went on the highway. On the way home, we had an ice storm.
Oh, yeah.
I was sitting there and holding onto that steering wheel.
Yeah.
I made it
But you
again.
made it. What is your sister's name?
Pardon?
What is your sister's name?
Lisa Lotte.
Lisa?
Oh, I gave her the name. I have always wanted a sister. And I told my mother, I want a sister, and her name is Lieselotte Katharina.
My goodness.
Lieselotte Katharina Dubourdieu.
My goodness, you were rather demanding on your mother to
Oh, I
have
wanted
a
a sister.
Have a sister.
Yeah. And then I didn't want to take care of her. Of course not. I was a baby, crying, you know. But I had to take her out in the buggy. It was nice to have a sister. But she was little when we got born out. Mom couldn't do anything, just hold on to her. You know, she was crying, and it was shattering for her.
Now, you said you came over here, you know, as a married woman, but what about your mother and father then?
Yeah, they stayed. They didn't want to come. And I went over there once with my children so they can see their grandchildren. Of course, they didn't speak German, but it didn't matter to my dad. He took them anyhow. and got him ice cream Sunday morning, you know.
Sunday morning, Grandpa.
And my mother died first, and then a year later my dad died. I was there for my mother's funeral, but I couldn't make it for my dad's, and my sister went down. But I have cousins over there, and one of my cousins, we're close, we call each other.
It's easier now, isn't it, to call, or do you use the computer? Do you use the email?
I didn't try anything. I didn't want to be bothered with this. I just go telephone, that's all.
I understand. It's hard for me to learn all the new things like the smartphone. I'm still learning that myself.
See, and that's why I keep my telephone. Just push my buttons, and that's okay.
So you said that you retired from working at the kitchen at St. Luke's.
Yeah.
And you said to yourself, what am I going to do now? What did you do now?
Well,
what did you do after that?
yeah, I was still young enough. I went and had a job at Brennecke Hardware.
Brennecke Hardware, oh my goodness.
And I liked that because the people, you know, and I was at the counter doing the register.
How did you come by getting a job at Brennecke Hardware?
I just did, because I was swimming all the time at Bridgeton, and I knew the hardware stores, we would buy that, and he always had an ad in for people, and I said, well, I was 70 at the time. Yeah, I was 72 when I got a job.
Well, they certainly weren't prejudiced about age, were they then?
No, I was going to get that job, and I did. I could do the arithmetic. I mean, they give you a test, you know.
Really?
That was no problem. I never had.
And what kind of job did you do at Brennecke Hardware?
On the register. I had to check out, you know, and I kept talking to the people all the time.
I think they want that, don't they?
Yeah. Then it was very nice to work there.
That's great.
And then at one time, between hospital and Brennecke, I was doing sewing. I love to sew. I don't sew anymore. I'm tired of it.
And what kind of sewing were you doing?
Everything and anything.
Like alterations?
No, I don't like alterations.
No, that's not
new
too much
stuff.
fun.
It was all new.
And for people that may want a certain outfitter
I had made suits for them.
Wow.
And dresses. I had several people that I was sewing for.
I see.
I enjoyed that. I like sewing. I have a problem with my sewing machine right now. I haven't fussed with it very much because I don't want to do anything that I want to be left by myself. I'm me, that's it. You know, I don't want any more responsibilities. I think that's what it is. There have been too many of it, you know.
Yes. So how long did you work at Brennecke Hardware store on the corner
A few
of
years.
St. Charles Rock Road? Just to clarify that.
It's maybe 4 or 5 years, yeah.
And you enjoyed it?
Yes, I did.
And got to meet a lot of the people. I'm sure that a lot of people come in repeatedly.
Oh, yeah, they did. Well, they're usually the customer that always came in there, yeah.
And how did you start, you said swimming at the Bridgeton Community Center.
Yeah.
How did you start doing that?
I decided I wanted to do something. I wanted to lose my weight. I had gotten quite heavy. And when I realized that swimming alone didn't do it, I went to our Hazelwood neighborhood center. They had a walkway that on the upper level. And I would go there every morning early and walk there several miles.
Wow.
That's how I lost my weight. I need to lose 10 more pounds, but I'm not gonna, I can't walk. I have too much problems with my back.
Oh.
And that my legs don't do that anymore.
So it's easier with the water?
Yeah, it's much easier in the water. I don't have the pain that when I use my legs, you know, I get the pain right here in my groin and down the back of my legs. I had a back operation. I'm not going to do anything anymore.
I see.
Yeah.
So, so you've kind of been connected with Bridgeton, but you haven't really lived in Bridgeton. Let me ask, where did your children, your son and daughter, go to school? Was it here in St. Louis? Your son and daughter, where did they go to school?
Hazelwood. We have a school in our neighborhood up the hill that is Hazelwood School.
And they graduated.
Garrett.
Yeah, and so they graduate from Hazelwood.
They graduated from Hazelwood. Yeah, we have the other Hazelwood school is down Howardshire.
Mhm.
That's the high school. That's where they went. That's where they graduated, yeah. But it is so close, Hazelwood is so close. And I knew they had an indoor pool, and they also had, we didn't have that, Hazelwood didn't have that yet. But Bridgeton always had that. And I knew Bridgeton because we always got up, my son and I would, when he was there, when he needed things, he always would go to Brenneke and get the stuff he needs. I remember Brenneke's, when they still had the doll houses out there, they used to have, when you come in the door, they had a counter there, and they had a dollhouse sitting there. It was absolutely beautiful. I love miniatures. And they had even toilet paper in miniature.
And who made this dollhouse that was on display?
I asked Tim Brenneke, and he said that was his grandmother's.
Really?
And she was the one that did all those things.
Wow.
I said, because it's not there, and I wanted to know, what did she do? Oh,
Right.
we have them under glass. We don't put them out anymore.
Ah.
See, I made a dollhouse. Somebody else made a dollhouse for me out of a box, a wooden box that I had. I made it 2 things, and I bought Pittsburgh was the first job. I got the doll furniture and the silverware for it. They were all wooden furniture.
Wow.
And then I went to St. Charles, and they had a lot of that stuff.
Uh-huh.
And I saved all of that.
Oh, wow.
I saved all of that.
So is that for one of your great-grandchildren?
Mhm.
You know what, just a little anecdote here. I was with my granddaughter in Chicago 2 weeks ago, and we were at the Museum of Science and Industry.
Oh, yeah.
A fabulous place, and there was a special exhibit on Walt Disney. Do you know Walt Disney,
Oh,
the
yeah.
creator of countless
Yes,
movies,
yes.
animation, and he was also into miniatures. And it had,
Oh.
yes, and it had a display of what his office looked like, and it had a lot of little miniatures that he actually made. So that was something I
That
didn't
was-
know about Walt Disney.
I didn't know that.
That's right, yes, he
That's
did.
right.
Right.
Yeah.
So, it's been so nice talking to you, Margaret. I'm so
Thank you.
happy, had a chance to meet you, and we gave a little plug for Branneke Hardware. I hope they appreciate that. And so what do you see in your future now?
I'm 88, there isn't that much.
We don't know.
I have my home, it's paid for, I still have to pay my utilities. And as long as I can stand on my 2 feet, I'm fine.
Wonderful, that's a great attitude.
Yeah, I can do things. I don't want a job anymore that I have to go there at a particular time.
Right, yes.
But I'm happy enough. I can go out and can swim, and I can take my car. Oh my, I'm holding my breath. That car is an '02 Toyota Corolla. 130,000, 129,000 miles on there. So it better last as long as I live.
Let's hope it does.
It will.
Let's hope it does. Well, thank you for
You're
talking
welcome.
with us today.
That wasn't a big deal. I enjoyed it.
Good.
I like to talk anyhow.
Me too.